Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan, and thank you for joining us. My guest today is Frank D'Agostino, a distinguished playwright, composer, executive producer, and former figure skater. Welcome. Frank, I'm eager to hear what project you're working on now. Tell us.
Oh, okay. Well, I work in several areas. I do cabaret, I write music, I create albums, I write musical theater, and I have one reality show pilot that's done and one that's coming up about Broadway. But currently, my biggest effort is Ice Champion, the musical, which is a musical about the world of figure skating. So, sort of like a chorus line on ice, except the characters tell their story through figure skating instead of dancing.
Has it been part of the American culture to date?
Figure skating has historically always been a popular sport. So, I am a former figure skater. So, growing up in that world, years ago, a friend of mine who was a scenic designer was working on one of my plays, and he said, there's the story that's never been told. And I said, oh, like a light went off. The old adage, write what you know about. So, I wrote about it. So that's what the story is. Three boys, three girls, their coaches, their mothers, and how they go to the Olympics. So,
Oh my goodness, that makes me uncomfortable. You were in competitive ice skating?
yes, for many, many years. And I coached for many, many years. And I coach my niece, who is 12 now, but I started her when she was 3. So shout out to my niece, Addison. So,
Oh, yes. I love that you have the ability to do and the ability to teach. They're very different qualities, aren't they?
no, it's quite true. Sometimes a good skater doesn't always make a good coach, but I feel like I have an eye for both of it since I'm a writer and I feel like I'm a communicator. So I feel I can work well with the kids and communicate what I need them to do. And I love it. I love coaching actually more than I even enjoyed my skating career. I find it very satisfactory and satisfying. So, and writing even more so.
Part that satisfies you.
To see my niece now, who I started when she was 3, or some of my other students who could barely walk on the ice, to become champions, and to see them walk into a room with their neck up and their shoulders up and their posture beautiful, and just the presence and the discipline that figure skating gives. I feel it's such a gift for me to be able to give that back and also to be able to talk about that world in my musical and my play.
Are there certain kind of bodies that are easier to coach into figure skating than other kinds of body shapes or height or musculature?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because the opening of my musical starts with some coaches at a group lesson and they're, going, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. So the body type would be not too terribly tall, not too long waisted because you have to rotate in the air like a cylinder. So if you're going to break at the waist, you're not going to rotate. So normally someone that's a little short waisted with long legs and lean will rotate and spin. So yeah, not too tall, not too short, and the body type has to be muscular but lean. Yeah.
Is that the opposite of having a body type to be a ballerina?
It's very similar. I think, the same thing with the center of rotation and not breaking at the waist. You have to have, very good core muscles so that you can spin and rotate. And ballerinas, basically do the same thing.
Does the money you get from coaching cover your living so that you can do these creative things separately?
No, 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 not at all. I coach because I enjoy it. I don't necessarily do it for the money. I don't tell a lot of people, but I also have a career as a safety and environmental engineer and a human factors engineer in ergonomics. So, again, that sort of goes with the body dynamic and things like that. So, it sounds very unconnected, but they actually are connected. So, yeah. I call coaching or my engineering jobs my theater development fund. It goes into albums or
Oh my goodness,
demos.
yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you're a very unusual person because a lot feeds you and you want to express a lot. How was your early training so that you had the ability to pull some of these things out of you?
Well, I always was very creative and always inside my head. I mean, as a child, I would sit and draw pictures and paint like all day long, much to my dad's dismay because he was a developer and a contractor. And I wouldn't play with, the building blocks, or I wouldn't play with the tractors or the trailers. I was always creating something myself. Even to this day, rather than watching TV or reading a book, I'm constantly in my head, thinking about a lyric or a new idea for a new play or brainstorming on some plot that I want to come up with for a reality show. I entertain myself quite well. So.
So, were you schooled in any of this? You must have gone to some artsy school, or not.
Well, I am schooled. I have a bachelor's in marketing and management with a minor in theater. And I was taught piano lessons from a very young age. And I was a figure skater from a very young age. So, I just put them all together. And, the music, the theater, film, albums, they just all sort of, come together for me.
So, ice skating is both athletic and lyrical. I was
Absolutely.
trying to remember who did I really loved at ice dancing. I think it was cool. And finally it came to me,
Uh,
Torval and Dean, which was a
oh
really
my
long
God.
time ago. But
Yes.
what I loved about it was the lyricism and the romanticism and
Yeah.
the emotion in what they did, whereas now I don't quite get it as
Y-
much. Anyway,
No,
maybe
yeah,
it was my time.
you're absolutely right. Torval and Dean were magic. And, the choreography and the art. Nowadays it's more of the jumps. Someone that was an Olympian that was in my show, several years back was Xana Bayul, who,
Yes, I remember.
yeah, like with a beautiful, ballet type of, lyrical skating. And that's what I prefer. I would much prefer a beautiful, long, well choreographed program than 10 quad jumps. That I don't even find them attractive. I find like the spiral sequences, the spins, the choreography personally, more attractive. And I wish the sport would go back to that. A lot of people do. So
So who decides? What does the committee decide? What how they're going to?
it's national committees, it's like the US committees, it's every country. Now they're really just sort of saying that artistic weighs 50% and technical does, but it really doesn't. It's not true. Years ago there was a jump called the delayed axel. It was only 1.5 rotations, but you went in the air and almost did a split jump, and it paused for a moment and then you rotated, and it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful jump, and these quads just go straight up in the air, spin, and it's over. Like you can't even see the rotations. So it's not up
Yeah.
to me. If I ran the world, it would
Is
be.
is is rating contestants Is that does that have a fashion of its own? So, like you were saying, there was a admiration for lyricism or grace or emotion, and now it's about how many rotations in
Right.
position you can do. Is that periodically changed or not so
It's
much?
progressively been going in the direction of more jumping. There is some backlash on it because another problem with the sport is there's no more name recognition. There are no more Michelle Kwans, there are no more Dorothy Hamels, there are no more, famous skaters because after 16, some of these girls grow up, they get hips or they get injuries. So when they're doing quad, they're burnt out and they're done by the age of 16. So there aren't, multi-year champions in a row the way they were in the days. I would beg people to tell me who the last two female male or male Olympians, and the general public doesn't know. But they knew Dick Button, they knew Peggy Fleming, they knew Dorothy Hamill, they knew Michelle Kwan. So it has to change so that an 18 or a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old can still skate without an injury and not be washed up.
Often I go to a Broadway show now and then, and I think nothing to hum going out of here. Is hummable music in or out in the things you write?
Oh, what I write is absolutely hummable, and I do not take that in any way as an insult. I think it's a great compliment. We were reviewed when we did our show out in Equity Theater in Patchogue, Long Island, and they said that they went out of the theater, the reviewer humming the song. So I've seen, several new Broadway shows, and I couldn't sing one song from them for you right now. And for someone to tell me that my songs, have a melody and have something that they can remember, that's very important to me. And I don't know what people think the trend should be, but I know what I like and what I want to write, and I know that it connects with people, and I hope it connects with people. So,
And you want to take this international,
oh,
the ice
absolutely,
champion?
yeah.
Tell how do you see that playing out?
You mean my play international? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, I mean
Oh,
not every
yeah.
place is able to set up an ice arena.
Well, it's not really that hard. We use the stage because it's a stage, play. It's proscenium arch, and it's set in theaters. And you can set an ice rink. They do it in shopping malls. They do it on ships. It takes 24 hours to freeze a stage. They put a coil down that's in a carpet with like a lining, and then they start to layer it with ice. They turn on a compressor, and the next day you have ice. We even have a small Zamboni machine during intermission that cleans the ice. So,
But is
you know.
it deep enough so if you do those sharp turns, it won't go down to the floor?
Oh yeah, no, we make sure it's deep enough. We've had people in our show, doing triples and quads. And it's a funny thing about the show, it's such a hybrid. I was with a famous producer from New York who came to see the show, and there was a beautiful ballad, and the male skater did a triple jump. And in the middle of a ballad, the audience applauded. And she looked at me and she goes, "They can't applaud during a ballad." And I said, "Well, they did." So there you go. Skating and ice and music. It's different than most people are used to. So.
Do you think the audience has changed? Are they more impatient or less able to follow plots?
That's a very interesting question, and especially because you're in media. I think the attention span in general, of young people is getting shorter and shorter. They're used to, an Instagram clip or a TikTok clip, so, this show is very episodic. Like it will go from, an American girl and then switch to the Russian girl, coaching, or North Korean girl being coached. So it does go back and forth a lot. So, it does keep people's attention. I know you find this too. It's hard to keep people's attention nowadays. So,
They seem uh, not agitated, restless.
yes,
That
yeah,
it's hard to settle down
right,
for as long a period. That's what I sense anyway. And the young people, like under 20, they're all about fast tennis, right?
right,
Fast back and forth with the words, the
right, right.
so-called conversation. Interesting. So, who is your audience primarily?
Well, interestingly enough, I really do want to bring younger people to theater. So, you know, I think the revival of Gypsy is magnificent. I've seen it. I think the revival of Sunset Boulevard, which is very innovative, is fabulous. But my audience are young people and families, because it starts with the journey of young children and how they achieve their dream and their success through hard work and dedication. And it's an entertaining story. It's a funny story. It's a sad story. You'll laugh, you'll cry. But at the end, there is, a story that hard work and dedication and commitment, pay off into, a gold medal, not necessarily fame. If that's what you want, you can have that too. So,
So, what is the next few steps you hope to achieve in getting that up and launched?
all right. Well, I'm currently working with a lot of people in New York or who are trying to, move this show along. We've been approached by Dubai, a large corporation that wanted to entertain their clients, and we had submitted a budget to that. At just before the pandemic, around the beginning of 2020, we had done what's called a workshop in New York, and some Korean producers came in, three of them, and they're interested in the show. So it basically takes a village. Years ago, a Broadway show would be produced by one or two people. It'd be $2 million, $3 million. Now a show can range anywhere from $14 million to $24 million, which is the new cabaret on Broadway. So, Dubai, South Korea, and London. And London is my very strong goal right now because I think something new and innovative is more accepted there in New York. And also, theater is government subsidized. And so a show that would cost you 14 million in New York costs 7 in London. So it would be a really great place to start.
Do you just walk us through the process of initiating something, or what kind of rights do you have to get, or what do you have to have in hand besides money?
Oh,
Or how far along does it have to be before you can submit it for approval or funding?
okay. Well, again, in today's age, no one's really going to read a script. So what I really need to do is workshop the show. So a year and a half ago in Palm Beach, we gathered together, many, VIP producers, many Tony voting, people. And we did a concert of the show with monologues, about an hour version, and we got a very strong response. And people have been making phone calls for me. Tony voters have been reaching out to some of their friends, and people have been saying we need to move this show along. But the old adage, no money, no honey. Unless we have $14 million, there's no show. I mean, I've been in regional theaters, equity professional theaters. It's been done in Central Park. Parts of it were done in Nassau Coliseum, but actually to get it on Broadway is $14 million. So,
In the old days, I seem to remember there were angels who, for economic reasons or interest reasons or just wanting to support things, would become investors, so to speak. Has that prevailed?
that has prevailed. People have different motivations for investing in a show. Do they want to win a Tony Award and maybe lose money or break even? Do they want to move something along, for art's sake? Do they want to make money or a killing? There's an old adage about Broadway saying that you can make a killing, but you can't make a living. So a lot of shows, no, it's true. A lot of shows close. And then if you've got a hit, people who put 200,000 into Jersey Boys in the first round, a year later, that 200,000 was $2 million. So, but that's not always the case. A lot of shows just break even or close, and you may lose some money. So it's a certain specific type of investor. Yeah.
Or what are projects you're thinking of beyond this in case this is a very slow sell?
No, I always tell, actors or people that want to get into the business, don't do it unless you want it as badly as you want your next breath, because it's a really tough business. There are highs, there are lows. Um, yeah, at one point I had a deal with another Olympian. I don't want to say the name for specific reasons. And then the deal fell apart, and I'd worked on it for a year and a half, budgets, everything. And then the theater called me back and they said, if you get another star, which was Oksana Bayul, then, we'll do the show. So yeah, it's a very tough, business.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Is it better to start outside the city, like in some of the other smaller communities who venerate theater?
I started years ago with some local non for profit theaters in New Jersey. And then, because I was young and crazy and manic, I'd be like, oh, let's move the show to New York. Those are the things I used to do. One time I had a double feature. I had two shows. One was the prequel, one was the sequel. I did them on alternating nights. And then on Sundays, it was a double feature with lunch. And believe it or not, that sold out every day in New York because people got a free lunch. So I do like to start out, right? Crazy. So I do like to start out like testing it somewhere, before it really gets seen by critics. And workshopping is very important. So this show has been workshopped with a full cast many, many times. I've had some of the best people in New York. One of the three shares was in my show. One of the women that played Elsa in Frozen has been in my show. I have nothing. I'm so blessed and lucky to have the best directors, the best musical directors, and the best actors who believe in what I do, and it's such an incredible process to work with professionals, and it's thrilling. Yeah.
Well, you sound like you have the best street people drawn to you, but is there any inspiration in the idea of lunch between two halves, like you were talking about, or two shows with
Yeah.
cocktails in between, or whatever?
Someone just said to me, so why isn't your show on Broadway? And I said, well, honestly, I think it's probably, people are a little bit afraid of the ice. So he said, well, remove the ice. And, with that type of person, I can't even talk to them because that's like telling someone to remove the dancing from chorus line, so our conversation was done. you know?
I know you're going to be super successful, but gosh, it takes an awful lot of.
Yes, dedication.
I can't even find the word. It's like belief in
Yeah.
yourself and your music that just says go back and do it till it works. Or am I wrong?
No, no, you're 100% right. I always was touched by the quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, where she said, never deprive someone of hope because it may be all they have. So, if an actor wants to act, if a singer wants to sing, if I want to be on Broadway, no one can take that dream away from me. And if I have the perseverance to make it happen, it will happen.
How do you re energize yourself when you hit a sparse period?
I have friends that, boost me up when something goes wrong, and, really try to, get me going again. I was terrified to do my concert a year and a half ago in Palm Beach because no one knew me there. and I knew I only had one shot at it. And, fear got in the way a little bit, and I was never fearful when I was young. But I got past it, and the concert was a great success. So, you have to put aside fear. It's your worst enemy. So
we've learned a lot from Frank. Just what he said now, put aside fear, have that relentless commitment to success. Make sure that you have talent or what passes for good talent in a variety of fields, and keep your options developing. Keep at it. Sometimes there are, as I call them, sparse periods, but then it comes back. Life is rhythmical in its own way, and keep with you his inevitable persistence and his ability to pass that on to young people, like in his coaching career with his niece and others. Go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and repeat it every day till I see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadownsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadownthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.